sorry, Judge. It's too big for me. Okay.
All right, come on, Mr. Ambrose. All right, he just gave you one. Come on, Mr. Ambrose.
State your name, please.
Lillian Diallo.
Ms. Diallo, you had mentioned yesterday about, we were discussing the idea of changing venue and a motion for a change of venue, correct?
We did.
All right, and if I'm not mistaken, your testimony was that Mr. Bashara wanted to stay in Wayne County, is that correct?
Wayne County, in front of Judge Vonda Evans, room 802, said it many times that he was getting a fair shake.
Okay, now, so was it ever, did you ever discuss at all changing venue with him?
That would dictate that we had that discussion. We talked about where would he go. So Mr. Bashar was of the opinion that right here, once again in Wayne County, he was getting a fair shake. Judge Evans was treating him fairly. He got everything. He was treated very fair. So he was very happy, except with the verdict.
Okay. Now, if Mr. McCarthy said that there was discussion about changing venue, would you agree with that or not?
I can tell you what my discussions were with Bob Bashara. I can't tell you anything about anything outside of what I know I talked about with that man right there.
As a defense team, did you ever discuss with Mr. McCarthy about changing venue?
There was I think there was some limited discussion once again when Mr. Bashara indicated when it was a joint jail visit of the many visits that he was happy where he was. But that wasn't an issue. And me and Mr. McCarthy talked about the national exposure this case had gotten everywhere, the Carolinas, even some international. So if he's getting treated fairly and he felt he was being treated fairly here, there would be absolutely no reason for us to go somewhere that's a known versus an unknown.
Well, with regard to the venue...
Well, let me ask you a question. Let me interrupt you. I'm sorry. Were there times when you went to see Mr. Bashir without Mr. McCarthy?
Yes, there were many times that I went to see Mr. Bashir without Michael McCarthy being present.
Okay, very good.
Now, during the course of the trial, was there, to your understanding, was there any nationwide media attention on this case?
I'm sorry, nationwide?
What?
Nationwide media attention on this case?
Sir, you must excuse me. I was busy preparing for trial and being in trial, so I wasn't a TV junkie at that time. Okay. I would get up early, spend 3 or 4 hours prepping, and come home and spend 3 or 4 more hours prepping. So I wasn't a TV junkie at the time.
So the short answer is you don't know?
I do not.
Okay. Now, with regard to the investigator, Joseph Bruce and Hank
Gillespie.
Now, had you wanted these two investigators to review this discovery in this case?
I believe Mr. Gillespie wanted to review the discovery, and I sent it to him because that's just how he is, very thorough as an ex-FBI guy. Mr. Bruce was already on the case when I got the case, so he had already been the appointed investigator.
Is it a normal practice for the investigator to review the discovery?
Not all of the discovery. And in a case like this, it was just so voluminous. You know, I wouldn't have expected them to review all the discovery. It was untenable how much paper there was in this case.
All right. You had a chance to review the interrogation of Joseph Gens?
Yes.
Okay. And you understand that his version of what had transpired didn't fit with the facts of the case. He says it happens at 7 o'clock, correct?
Who are you? Me? Are you asking me that?
Yeah.
I'm not the right person to ask that question to. I don't know. I know Joe Gens would have said some things that implicated Mr. Bashar. I know he said some things that I probably could have picked apart, but at the end of the day, he implicates Bob Bashar, however he implicated him.
And even though it didn't fit with the facts of the case?
That's what you say. The jury didn't agree.
No, but you're defending him.
I did.
Okay, and wouldn't you have wanted to reveal some of the inaccurate information that Joseph Gens provided?
I couldn't do that once he takes the fifth.
I understand, but you wanted Joseph Gens to testify.
I did.
Okay, very good. Now, with regard to your relationship with Mr. McCarthy, how would you describe it?
What do you mean?
Well, would you describe it as a good working relationship, bad
Oh.
working relationship?
It was a good working relationship.
All right, so you would deny ever walking out of like any type of interview that you had with Mr. Bashara and Mr. McCarthy?
With Mr. Bashara, oh no, I do not deny that. I'm going to tell you what happened. Mr. Bashara, who, and no offense, thinks he's the smartest man in the room in the planet, thought he was going to tell me how to do something. As I explained, I'm a lawyer. I didn't get this standing on a street corner. I got this by going to school. So with all respect to Mr. Bashara, he cannot tell me or dictate to me which way he thinks something legally should go. So absolutely, I walked out, and I'm going to tell you something better that I said, and I explained this to Mr. Bashara. Something I do not believe in is slavery. I wasn't a fan of it when it was in effect. I was not going to be made a slave to Robert Bashara. I was going to defend Robert Bashara to the best of my ability. I was not going to let anybody do anything that was going to cause him a burden. So that man was defended. Unfortunately, the verdict was what the verdict was, but I will not, and I have not been pushed around by a man, and I was not going to start with Robert Bashara.
Well, tell me, I mean, he's the client, right? He knows the facts of the case, correct?
No. His version of the facts sometimes were a little different than the reality of the case. And certain things I tried to point out to Mr. Bashara absolutely came back to bite him in the behind.
Well,
and I told him, Mr. Bashara, this is probably not a question that you want to ask. Oh, no, I think it's important. Ask the question and get it slammed down our throats.
Give me an example of that.
Keys. He was so fixated on this big old set of keys that he said he kept separate, and everybody knew he kept separate. Mr. McCarthy asked the question because I said it's not a good question. No, Mr. Bashar, smartest man in the room, it's the question to ask. Asked, I believe it's the son, well, tell me about the keys. I always saw my dad with the keys. That hurt to me, Robert Bashar's case, because he was so fixated on the keys being separate from him and all, most of the times. But his son gets up and says something different. I had told Mr. Bashar, that's not a good question.
Well, did you ever talk to the son prior to?
And say what?
And ask him.
I gave him my condolences. That's what I did.
Understood, and I do too. But did you ever ask him prior to him testifying about the keys?
No.
Why not?
Because that was not my witness.
Okay.
And I looked at the statement that he gave.
No, wait a minute. Let her finish.
It wasn't part of a statement. You can't sit up there and try to bait clients witnesses into what you want them to say. They're going to say what they want to say. And I'm not going to lie for that man, and I'm not going to lie on that man.
Who is asking you to do that?
Robert Bashara.
How?
By voice. He talks a lot. And he writes a lot. Mr. Bashara, even when we're sitting at the table, there were times I had to tell him, be quiet. There's perfectly good testimony going on I'm missing while you're talking about nothing.
Well, let's get back to, when did Mr. Bashara ask you about that key?
All the time. He was talking about that. Hold on.
Wait.
During the trial, he was talking about that once the witnesses started testifying. He's very fixated on the keys. I'm like, don't worry about the keys. And, we don't want to make such a clear distinction about the keys in a juror's mind versus where you said they should be versus where they may have been. But he made that clear distinction when he insisted on having that question asked. And it was of that son that question was asked.
All right, and you never asked Joseph Bruce or the other investigator to interview the son?
I asked him to interview the witnesses.
Okay, and did they?
No.
All right. Now, were you aware at any point that the investigators were not getting compensated?
As I said yesterday, that was toward the end of the case. There is an issue about compensation, and I am not the proper person to talk to about their issue about compensation.
Okay, very good. But you were somewhat aware of it.
I just told you I was.
Now, had you ever This case, an aspect of this case involved the BDSM issue, correct?
It did.
All right. Had you ever at any time sought out any type of consultant or did any type of investigation into this area of alternate lifestyles?
Absolutely not.
Okay. And why not?
Because that was not the cause of death of
Understood.
Jane. Oh, no, you don't understand if you ask me the question. That was not the cause of death of Jane Bashara. Jane Bashara was choked, strangled, brutally murdered. Why would I waste the precious time that we had trying to find out who likes to spank who and how they like to do it and what they want to wear while they do it?
Well, the prosecution was certainly interested in that.
And that has what to do with Lillian Diallo.
No, I understand. Did you object to that area being
If
into the
you,
trial?
if you read the transcript, my good man, you know I did. I objected a lot. I was a very active attorney.
And would you ever get upset with any time Mr. McCarthy would not object?
That's between Mr. McCarthy and his level of practice and what he does. I can speak for Lillian Diallo, and that's the only person Lillian Diallo is going to speak for.
Were there any times during his cross-examination or his examination of witnesses or any time where you thought an objection should have been made?
If I did, I think I jumped up and objected.
Okay.
Matter of fact, I did.
Now,
Let me just ask this question. There were some pretrial motions that were filed. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Extensively.
Yes.
Do you remember specifically a pretrial motion being filed and granted by this court on September the 8th, 2014, which allowed Robert Bashara's affair/lifestyle as to marital discord?
Yes, I do.
And that was entered by this court, is that correct?
It was entered by this particular court, it was.
So when the issue was in that particular motion, as I remember, dealing with the BDSM lifestyle, it went to the marital discord.
Only to the marital discord,
Okay, very
not
good.
about
Okay.
anything else.
Just wanted to check if you remember that.
I do. Thank you.
was that the first time that you became aware that that would be an issue in the case?
What are you saying?
Was that the first time that you became aware that that would be an issue in the case?
What issue?
The BDSM marital discourse being allowed in the trial?
Oh, no, I mean, no, of course not.
Okay, but
Have you seen the discovery? I copied the whole thing for you myself. You had to see those pictures.
And may I ask, wasn't it revealed that it was a tetrabyte worth of information?
Oh, a terabyte, yes.
A terabyte.
It was a whole lot of stuff, and
Okay.
I myself copied it for you. So what I have, you should have. And you should see that all that stuff on that hard drive, a lot of that had to do with the BDSM.
And you objected to that aspect being introduced into the trial?
Some of those things on there never made it into this trial. So whatever was objectionable, it was objected to. The only way the BDSM came in had to do with the marital discord, as the judge said, that was part of the motions.
Very good. Now, with regard to the closing arguments in the case, what was the initial plan regarding the closing arguments?
The initial plan was that Mr. McCarthy would do the closing and I would do the opening.
Okay, and somehow that changed.
It did.
Okay, and why did it?
Because I felt it was important, since we had so much time in our closings, for me to look at the jury and tell them. I talked about, Lois Valente and the Key Party and all that good stuff, and how Jane might have had knowledge that her husband was doing certain things outside of the marriage. I felt it was important for me, Lillian Diallo, to look at the jurors and say, I said I was going to show you these, let's say, 3 things. I showed them the 3 things, and I sat down.
Okay. Now, yesterday you had stated that you don't necessarily recall the jury sending out a question to the court.
I told you that yesterday, and it's still the same today. I'm sure there were questions, but you must know I do practice law for a living, and I'm a very active attorney.
Can may I approach the witness, Your Honor, just to refresh your recollection?
You may. Page and line, sir.
It is page 26.
You say page 26 of
Yeah, December 18th, 2014 testimony,
I'm sorry, page 26.
or transcript rather, and that's the example that the court gives to the jury
About reasonable doubt?
about reasonable doubt.
Okay, yeah, we talked about that yesterday.
That she didn't recall.
Okay. Well, no, remember the judge when she said...
I
it was-
refreshed her memory with the question, with the example, and then she went on and said that she found it not to be inappropriate.
You still don't think it's inappropriate?
No,
Not at all?
no.
Okay. All right, fair enough. I have no further questions.
Do you have any?
There you go.
I don't think so.
Wait, hold on for a minute. You sure? Want to review? Huh?
I'm sure.
Okay, very good.
Thank you, Judge.
May Ms. Diallo be excused?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, very good. Okay, you've got a matter in federal court, is that
I
correct?
do, Your Honor.
Okay, and when do you think you'll be done?
I could be back here by 11,
All right, let's start back at 11:15. Where's Mr. Bruce?
I think. He's in the building.
We'll make sure he's available.
Fair enough.
Now, what did I say yesterday about those witnesses?
Yes, that you wanted them in October 2nd.
You wanted it filed by the 2nd, and you, you're on the 13th.
October 13th?
Yeah.
And then we're coming back on.
Right, weren't you requesting an investigator?
Yeah, and, yes.
Did you do the order?
What's that?
Did you do the order?
I have not yet.
You have it by when you come back?
Sure.
All right, good. All right, court's in recess to 11:30. And then we're done with Mr. Bruce, that's it for this hearing, part of
Yes.
it, okay. No more witnesses, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Court's in recess. And make sure you contact Mr. Bruce to have him up here so we can get this done today, please. Thank you. $11:30.
When is Mr. McCarthy?
He went to Judge Thomas's courtroom. He'll be up shortly.
Hey, John,
Ooh.
have you talked to Mr. Schwab?
Yeah, let's see if we can try to get, oh, Kelly, you know that woman never got that order back from Miss Shawn Walker.
Oh, Lily told you?
Uh-huh.
Let me call Earl Washington. So we don't need her today? I'll take her back and I'll go get Mom.
Huh?
I know what I was waiting for. No, so he walks so slow and really? Oh my God. He walks slow in the middle. I swear to God. Yeah, Earl Washington.
Why do you look backwards?
No, because I heard. I heard Earl. I thought it was somebody. Earl Washington. I'm gonna call Earl